Generation Dragenesis is an odd one. You see, in Japan, when this set came out, the official tournament circuit for 2024 had already ended, and all we had left were basically unofficial tournaments as well as some of the nationals across Asia. That being said, it by no means did not impact the meta. I mean, after all, this set, instead of introducing brand new decks, just basically took all of these old decks that haven't been supported for a while and updated them to modern standards. So of course, a lot of them did get to stand toe-to-toe with a lot of the best decks of the previous format. And kicking off our top 10 is exactly one of those decks, which is the Blue Storm Supreme Dragon Glory Maelstrom. Right after the set's release, WGP Singapore's nationals took place where two Maelstroms managed to make it into the top 8, but what made the deck suddenly so good? Well, Glory Maelstrom gives the deck its much needed front row power scaling, a way to draw extra cards and retire opponents' rears every turn, a guard restrict that stops the opponent from perfect guarding once per turn from turn 4 onwards, and basically does what old Maelstrom did but better in every way. You also have Eladeal, which is a grade 2 that's treated as being an Aquaforce clan, which is already great since it can be revived with the Maelstrom order, but he also checks top 7 for a Maelstrom or the order itself, giving you access to consistent persona rides and a way to search copies of OG Maelstrom to spam the draw and retire effect from Glory. And if that's not enough, you can also swap your rears around after attacking. Thanks to that and Wheel Assault, you're doing 2 attacks off of Maelstrom's own effect, another 1 to 2 attacks depending on how many swappers you have, plus your Vanguard swing for a pretty consistent 4 to 5 attacks every turn while gaining good resource advantage and popping annoying rears your opponent may have left up. By the way, do you remember the set that Maelstrom was originally printed in? That's right, BT-08 Blue Storm Armada. You know what else that set is famous for? No, not Zeal. That's right, it's the set that introduced Dimensional Robos as a proper archetype rather than just being a lone boss unit. And just like Maelstrom and Dayusha went hand in that set, so do they go hand in hand in this ranking as well, as Dayusha lands in 9th with his fantastic support in this most recent set. First, we've got Diewing, a brand new grade 3 Dimensional Robo for the first time in God knows how many years, proving that D-Robos are still alive and well 3,000 years later in Planet Cray. Sadly, due to being grade 3, it is neither searchable nor callable by die base, but I do think its effects are good enough to cover for that. When called, you can pay 3 energy to call a different named Dimensional Robo from your soul to rear, but it'll go back to soul at the end of the turn. This is actually even better than die base in some instances, as you have some cards like Die Battles, which are best if they go back to soul to be recycled for their effects, as you typically don't run that many copies of them. The other effect of Diewing gives it power and shield scaling based on how many of your bases are in order zone, with a 5k gain if you have 1 and a 10k gain once you have 3, giving back a bit of that die-liner feel to D-Robos from V-Series, and further solidifying the Yusha as the tanky deck it is. The other piece of support is the triple rare Glory Maker. She revives herself from drop to the back row whenever you ride a grade 3 if you don't have her on board, and on boost, she allows you to pick between 2 flavors of guard restrict. You either stop your opponent from playing blitz orders or you battle door them, which is something that we call the restriction to have to call 2 cards from hand when guarding. Generally, if you boost the Vanguard with her, you'll want to battle door your opponent so they have to ditch an extra card when perfect guarding the first swing, but with the next set introducing Persona Shield tickets, the blitz order stopping effect is actually going to be even more effective. So there, it's going to gain some value in boosting some of those rearguard swings too. Overall, these were both great additions to the deck that really gave it a lot of tops in this season, and while the 3rd Dimensional Robo card Die Trucker started off kind of good at the very beginning, it did kind of fall off after seeing some use in the early lists, but not so much down the line. A deck that maybe didn't benefit as much from its newest cards compared to Dayusha though is our 8th place, which is Chronojet. As you can see from this list that came 4th at an ultimate, the only card that's seeing play at high copies from the new ones is the brand new Stride Chronos Command Dragon. If it's a remake of a 10-year-old card, can you really call it brand new though? Anyway, Chronos Command is basically the best card to flip face up on your first Fate Rider Stride turn, as it gets stronger the more face up copies of itself it has. When you stride it, you can count almost 1 to bot deck your opponent's entire board, which even gets around pesky non-targetable effects. This will be even more relevant to the next set's meta. On top of that, you can give one of your rears the effect that after it attacks, you can return it back to deck to call something that is 1 grade greater than it, and you'll get 5k for every face-up copy of Chronos Command in your G-Zone too. This works really well paired with Upstream Dragon, but the important point is that you must first resolve Upstream Dragon's effect to call a grade 1, and then Chronos Command's effect will stay on standby to call a grade 3 basically creating a whole new column from scratch. The reason why this order matters is that Upstream's effect has a cost to return it to deck, whereas Chronos Command doesn't, meaning that if you use Chronos Command's effect first, then the upstream that you have to pay the cost of returning to deck is no longer there to pay for it, so it fizzles out. This is why you see cards like Bali now being played in the deck again, as you basically freely call out a 23k beater, not counting additional effects that gets a strong booster behind it to get over defensives. The other new card is Glimmer Breath Dragon, which is mostly included as a one-of to be called off of Fate Rider's effect for draw power and big attacks, or just as an early game beater that generates card advantage. The card doesn't necessarily bring anything too new to the deck, but it can be a pretty good budget replacement for cards like Ford and Rivaltis, as can be seen in the second list. Another common trend is the promo that will be released in English in April, Philia, which is a really good addition to Jet as it generates soul early that you can use for GG, while also being a good grade 1 call target off of Upstream Dragon 2. Jumping up to 7th, it is the ever controversial Eladeal. People genuinely want this deck to be killed due to how uninteractive and just gamble gameplay-esque it is. And while in this meta the deck didn't do that much in Japan, you can already see the English results that Eladeal is a very consistent topping deck in the English side. Japan is now finally catching on to Eladeal, so I expect the deck to start seeing more tops globally, which might lead to Moe Flash's restriction down the line, but you should definitely continue to expect to see the solitaire deck perform well for many sets to come, as it simply doesn't care about what the opponent is playing to do what it needs to do. What you need to do is subscribe if you like the content. I know some of you are tired of hearing this, but these videos take a very long time to make, as you can probably tell by me not having uploaded for a little bit. And liking the video, commenting, subscribing, all those things really do help in supporting this kind of content that I make as well. And if you're interested in seeing any of these decks in action, I do show them off in first-person perspective fight videos exclusive for YouTube channel members. So if you're interested in those, make sure you check those out as well. Back to the ranking though, a deck that has been very much present in Japan, unlike Eladeal, is Night Rose. The Pirate Queen this time ranks in at 6th, and some people might have missed it, but Night Rose did actually get a really important new card in this set, the brand new Soul Front Trigger. These new fronts have 0 power and 15k shield, but after you guard with one of them, they go to your soul instead of being retired. This card is really important for Night Rose because one of her best cards, Enlarge Golf, asks for a soul each time to get a card back from drop, and you generally spam this effect a lot. For that reason, just the inclusion of these fronts gives Night Rose more flexibility and resources to work with, which I think positions her very well in this format too. In 5th, we have an all reliable that didn't get any new cards in this set to retain its good positioning, Varga. I wouldn't say it's necessarily lost or gained many bad matchups, so its position in the middle feels relatively fitting considering its nature of deciding games based on how strong its own drive checks and early game are. Before we count down the top 4 though, it's time for the honorable mentions, and this time there are a lot. The nature of this set just kind of like gave little crumbs to a lot of different decks, and because of that, there's so many decks that actually did get some tops or did perform pretty well and got up to date, but you know, I restrict these lists to just 10, so we got to feature a bunch of them in this segment. The first one though is a deck that didn't get any support, neither did its nation get any support, but it somehow got a lot of tops, which is Kaidi. For some reason this deck got a lot of top finishes this set, as it's a deck that's happy to be handed going second by any of the decks that are happier going first, being able to ride up into grade 4 Kaidi immediately and attack with hard-hitting multi-attacking columns. At the opposite side of the spectrum, a deck that is very happy to be given the go first by stride decks and whatnot is Blangmire. This deck also has really good matchups into the older meta decks, gaining quite a good number of tops this set. This list won an ultimate with 4 swirlers being played, which is quite surprising, but they do raise the overall columns of the deck for its 4 attack turns going into the divine skill turn, and it also turns off Levidress's marker effect with its divine skill, being overall quite well positioned in this format. A deck that didn't necessarily mean to get support but still ended up getting support is Leonarn. Thanks to this brand new normal order in this set, which chooses a rear and gives it plus 5k for the turn for each of your grade 1 or lower rear guards, allowing you to target your Luster Impact or Lagadas sitting in the back with boost, buff it by plus 20k when you have 4 other grade 1s on board, and then your Rosariums will copy that 35k plus power each time they attack that turn. Definitely watch this space with all the upcoming Leonarn support too. And also Master Deck Set, be a very good product to pick up. For my personal wish to have made it to the top 10, Eva managed to get a good few tops while people were figuring out the list. The main addition to the deck was the inclusion of the new research order, Imprisoning Past. This one card lets you buff your Obscudades or Eva by 5k once per turn, but most importantly, you can Soul Blast 1 to return a glitter from drop back to deck, meaning that you will never run out of Poison in Paradises to Superior Ride. This means that you're able to reduce the copies of Poison in Paradise in the deck to make more space for other cards, and I personally think that you can reduce her to 2 and still be fine, as this order will constantly recycle her every turn you need it. The cool tech in this list is the Zap Sizzle, a grade 1 monster that lets you recycle your orders for a 5k gain. Since Past only recycles glitters, you still sometimes need to recycle your research orders to set when the game gets long in order to keep reviving your Migrars to keep going into the Poison in Paradise you keep returning. Eva will be able to use the generic support in the next set quite well too, so it's definitely worth to keep an eye on her as well. Gandiva took forever to catch on and get some tops, but people finally started to figure out the list with Gandiva masks. The masks is basically the same old Gandiva, but now comes with the masks buffs and gets to use Dragon Tree markers for its multi-attacks, while also being able to Soul Blast 1 to retire something or draw a card if you couldn't, while further stacking the Bind Zone cards for the front row buff. In case you're like me and ignored Gandiva after it lost Thyrgana, the deck has very consistent ways to set up the masks thanks to the Dragon Tree cards. It got a restanding rear in Divine Set 2 to add to its multi-attacks with Alpha Car, and a grade 1 that finds grade 3s and restands in the back row when something in front of it stands or is placed. What the deck does hasn't really changed, and the number of grade 3 slots taken up by Thyrgana just got replaced by masks, so the things that the deck does haven't really changed, it just got a little bit faster going second thanks to the way that masks works. Speaking of Dragon Empire deck support, in this set, Tamayura managed to sneak in a top using the 7 front list that capitalizes on the new soul fronts that you can use for your Ririmi Rarami costs, as well as a new order that also generates soul while searching your pieces while letting you reuse your superior calling Foxheart with its in-drop effect. Finally, the other package unit of the set, Rodowa, managed to actually top in the Korean Nationals, getting a top 8 finish. With this build that prioritizes consistency to find all the glitter related pieces paired with a brand new form of Rodowa. This form provides easier token generation through energy while also giving bot deck removal against your opponent's board, or the ability to toolbox your grade 2s or 1s depending on which Lascaria you return to the bottom of your deck from rear or soul. One of the new grade 2s is the unit form of Momokke, being a grade 2 that can only be called by retiring a Momokke token that can burn opponent's rears while back row attacking as a 20k body, that then fuses its power into the grade 3 Raririna that you use for the final attack of the turn. I think Rodo overall was very underexplored in this set, so I highly recommend those of you that are interested in the archetype to cook back at home while you guys have this set before set 7 comes out especially. And now that we're done with that long list of mentions, it's time to crown our 4th best deck. And that rank of 4th goes to Leel Odium. This list is the one I used myself to get 4th at the first ultimate of the year in January, making use of the brand new Regulus piece, Fire Regulus. It's really good in helping you access your most important attacker in Anachronous Dragon, while also finding other good cards like Almanac Colossus and Philia, and using 8 cyclers basically means you're never running out of hand while digging for your Banes and other combo parts to finish the game on your Divine Skill turn. I think this deck is still really good, especially once you learn that the Levidrus matchup going second is basically just bash your opponent's face 3 times per turn starting from turn 1, and usually they won't be able to deal with your early aggro because they do so little, and if you go first then you just have so much tempo going first to be able to try to like win with Divine Skill in turn 4 that in most matchups that usually is what is enough to work. Going forward though, I think the Soul fronts will be a good pickup due to the upcoming support using Soul in set 7, so I think you can expect Odium to keep performing well going forward. And in 3rd is where the most impactful deck supported in this set ranks, which is with Messiah. Messiah got incredible support this set, making it be the strongest stride deck thanks to its ability to remove units from the game with its locked crest, not just once per turn now, but even get rid of entire boards thanks to its brand new stride, Trans Else Messiah. This new stride unlocks all of your locked cards when it attacks, enabling your 5 attack combo turns, and then locks your opponent's rears equal to how many face-up cards you have in G-Zone, meaning at minimum 2 if you stride this on 2nd stride, or 4 if you strode Amnesty Messiah on 2nd stride before going into this. On top of that, it'll give 5k power to as many of your rears as you have face-up copies of Transel specifically, so while the power gain is lower than Amnesty Messiah, it is still relevant enough as long as you have 2 or more copies face-up due to the board wipe part of the effect. But in my opinion, this one is actually the weakest of the new cards that Messiah got. In my opinion, one of the biggest factors is the addition of Lady Battler of the Black Dwarf. Another self-locker in the deck that distributes 5k to one of your other rears when she attacks, but most importantly, she revives herself from drop when you stride a Link Joker G unit for Counterblast 1, 1-0 and GB3, meaning 3 face-up cards in your G-Zone and Vanguard Circle combined. This gave the deck a combine rusher, meaning that now you will always be able to do at least 4 attacks, and if you have 2 of her in the spare CB, you can even revive 2 of her as well for 5 attacks. If you get board wiped, you can even revive her to the back row and lock her for Alter Ego Stride skill 2, making her a very flexible addition to the deck that has raised the floor by a lot. It's exactly what the deck was missing. I do think it's a pretty close tie with one of the other cards that Messiah got, or rather Branke got in this set, which is the Soul Front. Every instance of Soul for Messiah is another card drawn from the GB2 effect, so being able to draw up to 6 cards in one turn after your first stride is now much easier to achieve by getting the extra Soul from just guarding with these fronts. Messiah will stay relevant for quite some time due to how stable it has become, and while this first build is more focused on just drawing lots without focusing as much on the early game, builds like this one allow you to be more flexible in the early game by employing the Veltrosa to dig for pieces and be able to do things on turn 2. After set 7 came out in Japan, this order-based build has been topping a bunch as well, using ice fishing to fish for your pieces while filling the soul, Pelika Express to recycle ice fishing while being a 20k shield, and the World Order to retire attackers if necessary while being another Pelika target. This clearly shows that there's still a lot of cooking left with this deck, so I'm really curious to see how far it'll go by the time English Worlds comes around. Unfortunately though, the top 2 spots have not changed since last time. Raziel ranks in 2nd, with the main changes seen in topping list is some copies of Biscotti being added to help with the consistency of the deck and to stack triggers on top of the deck. This meta will still stay the top dog, but that'll definitely change in set 7. And in first, little surprise to no one, I assume, is Levidrus, a deck that we've already explained many times on this channel. The only changes are usually ratios, with everyone realizing the value of Foxel and Squirrel and playing higher copies of them to make sure your powerful combos are reproducible more consistently. Now then, how will this top 10 get shaken up by Buff Sagara in set 7? If you watch the Japanese World Championship though, I think you already know that there's a clear winner.